Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming Lost Chapter, Rubicante, Autarch of Flame, featuring a new character, one of the four fiends, Rubicante from Final Fantasy IV. It is also noted that moving from this point onwards, new characters will be introduced with their Lost Chapters. The event synergy units are Rubicante, Cissnei, Trey, Yuna, Lulu and Prompto. Like other newly introduced characters, other than his kit being introduced for the first time, Rubicante will come with his FR boards. The other FRBT unit for the event is Yuna, but sadly, she won't be getting her FR Echo boards. We will be fighting two Tattered Ghost, which has 100 million HP each. They do not have major resistances. The turn requirement is 40. The HP requirements is 10,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Like most other Shinryu fights, the boss gains increased brave damage and gain resistances at start of the fight and 79% HP threshold. Bringing a support like Luna, Freya, Charlotta, Aerith, Ramza, Yuna, Iroha, Pernello, Garnet, Sarah, or Selpha that grants damage boosting aura will make your fight easier. As the boss gains substantial boost to their defenses with the auras, it is important to inflict debuffs that lower their defenses. On the screen I have listed down the key utility that you can consider when forming your party for this fight. The boss can gain infinite turns when it activates its concentration aura. They will keep on chaining their turns repeatedly until your party is dead or the aura is cancelled. The aura will be activated for the first time at 69%, deactivate when its HP reaches 39% and reactivate it for good at the 19% HP threshold. Most of the boss attacks are single target. When its force time is active, it will follow up its attack with Darka Plus, which is a double single target Brave plus HP attack. To deal the boss force weakness which cancel its force time, you need to use a magic fire force ability. Examples of fire elemental force ability are Rubicante himself, Vivi, Neon and Braska. You can also enchant non-elemental magic FR units with fire enchanters and meet the condition like using Sarah, Charlotta, Cloud of Darkness, Terra, or Yuna. For fire enchanter, you can use Neon, Ignis, or Lulu. Both Neon and Lulu provide true fire enchant. Where it is active, it will overwrite any elemental ability to be enchanted with fire. Do note that Rubicante is also a fire enchanter himself. Generally, there are two main approaches to do this fight. You can go with the standard rush down strategy with follow-up attacks and launches, or deploy the hit and counter strategy. If you are deploying hit and counter strategy, you can consider the following utility: damage mitigation and counter with off-turn tactics. For damage mitigation, you can consider Warrior of Light, Bash, Zack, or Rubicante himself. If you do not have the intention to get Rubicante, you can abuse the boss consecutive turns with the counter mechanics like using one of the counter tanks like Orin, Gladiolus, Glove, or units with counter mechanics like Core, Trey, Ace, etc. If you are doing rush down strategies, you can make use of the Dragoons, Kain or Freya, and other follow-up attackers like Cissnei, Yang, Seven, Cloud of Darkness, etc. If you are unable to delay the boss turns, you can also make use of turn disable utility to stall the boss turns so you can nuke them with the FR powered burst phase. Generally, this fight is relatively easy. There are lots of Rubicante solo runs and someone abused the infinite turns mechanics and did with a non-FRBT unit like Gladio soloing the fight. If you do not want to do hit and counter, the standard rush down strategy will also work well here. As we are no longer have Lufania Plus fights, the boss guide will be focused primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. If you don't bring any force chargers, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. Throughout the fight, the boss has a permanent force gauge properties that raises the boss's brave damage resistance against all non-fire elemental attacks by 70%. When the force gauge is at 30% or higher, the boss will raise its attack by 30%. The boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. At the 100% threshold, the boss will use Soul Wave, which will cause the boss to recover from break, followed by a guaranteed hit AoE Brave plus HP attack that is executed twice. The attack could hurt if you do not have any damage mitigation. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with a counter of 4 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, the boss will gain the following enhancements where the boss will reduce both brave and HP damage received by 50%. The boss will also follow up its attacks with Darka Plus, which is a single target brave plus HP attack executed twice. To deal force weakness on the boss, which will cancel the force time, you need to use a fire elemental magic force ability. Examples of fire elemental based FR are Rubicante, Vivi, Neon and Braska. Alternatively, you can use a fire enchanter like Neon, Lulu, or Ignis and use a non-elemental magic FR like Sarah, Rinoa, Charlotta, Cloud of Darkness, Terra, Fusoya, or Yuna to meet the condition. You can also make use of true fire elemental abilities to meet the condition for other elemental magic FR like Garnet. Now let us go through the key mechanics of the fight. Throughout the fight, the boss will activate concentrating auras when their HP reaches 69%. The aura will be deactivated at the 39% HP threshold and reactivates at the 19% HP threshold. Upon activation of the auras, the boss will raise its speed by 70% and continuously loop its turn when the aura is active. It will raise its brave and HP damage by 100%. If you are doing a hit and counter or using an off-turn FR, this is a blessing in disguise. The more turns that the enemy takes, the faster your FR HP bonus will build up. If you do not have counter units in your team composition setup, it is advisable to deploy a rush-down strategy while denying the boss turns with delay or turn deletion. You can also stall turns with turn disable debuff. Make use of follow-up attackers like Cissnei, the Dragoons, Cloud of Darkness, or send the boss flying with launches. Now let us cover the boss basic mechanics. Like most other bosses, the boss has a standard move rotation and 2 of its abilities will have a HP attack. It will start off with Banishing Gaze, which is a single brave attack that grants the boss 50% turn rate up and inflicts 50% turn rate down debuff for 5 turns on its target. Next, it will use the plus variant of it, Banishing Gaze Plus, which is a guaranteed hit, single brave attack plus HP that grants the boss 50% speed rate up and inflicts 50% speed down debuff for 5 turns on its target. Lastly, it will follow up with Darka, which is a single target dark elemental brave plus HP attack. After that, the boss will use Banishing Gaze on its following turn, thus repeating the cycle. As mentioned earlier, if the boss force time is active, it will follow up with Darka Plus, which is a double single target brave plus HP attack. We have come to the end of boss mechanics. So, let's proceed to talk about one of the most anticipated units in this era, Rubicante. Before I end the guide, let's cover a bit on the featured FR unit. As Rubicante is a new unit introduced to the game, let me cover briefly on his kit. Generally, he is an indomitable fire elemental tank with force gauge filling, lock aura and counter mechanics. Because of these mechanics, he can carry bronze units to Shinryu fights, thus giving you easy access to Shinryu event tickets. Now let us briefly talk about his kit. Please do note that all his attacks are fire elemental. His S1, Friga, is an AoE Brave plus HP attack and grants his buff "Come at me with all your might." The buff will grant Rubicante a lock aura, like Leela, raises his attack, max brave and reduces brave and HP damage received. While the buff is active, when receiving brave or HP damage, Rubicante will counters the attack with Counter Fira, which is an AoE brave plus HP attack. His S2, Absorb Blizz Era, is an instant turn, extend his own buffs by 1 turn and heal himself to max HP. If there is any excess healing, the healing will be distributed to the party. As it is an instant turn, if you have max force levels, you can abuse it for fast gauge filling. In my opinion, this is the key ability that differentiate Rubicante from other tanks. To date, he is the only FR tank in the game with instant FR charging mechanics. His EX, Inferno, is another AoE brave plus HP attack while applying Fire Imperil debuff. It will grant his S1 Come At Me With All Your Might buff and another offensive buff Rubicante Autarch of Flame, which raises his attack, brave, and HP damage, stolen and gain brave overflow. It also restores 1 use of his S1. His LD, Soul Scald, is another AoE brave plus HP attack which grants himself another framed buff, strongest of the 4 archfields, which grants party auras, fire enchant, HP and brave damage up, HP damage resist up and stolen brave overflow. Upon using the LD, it will also grants Rubicante a free skill use on the next turn. His BT ability, Geryon Be Its Name, will grant an aura that raises your party brave damage, max brave and brave damage cap. It will also grant his second counter mechanic, Counter Furiga, which is another AoE brave plus HP attack. Counter Furiga will trigger after Counter Fira. The BT aura lasts for 8 turns if his BT is green. Do note that you need his base buff active to have the second counter triggered. His force ability, Warrior's Pride, is another fire AoE brave plus HP attack. Upon activating the FR, it will lowers Rubicante turn rate by 50% and raises his brave and HP damage by 50%. It will also grant him a self-heal back mechanic that heals back his HP back to 50% if HP drops below 50%. Rubicante has an innate last stand passive, so during his force time, he is practically unkillable. Now let's briefly go through the force condition of his FR. 1. You will get 40% HP damage bonus when your party received brave or HP damage. This condition is like Warrior of Light's FR condition. If his buffs are active, Rubicante has lock auras, so he will always be targeted. 2. You will get 5% HP damage bonus with off-turn damage is triggered. Rubicante will counters with Counter Fira when he is attacked, which grants you 5% HP damage bonus. If his BT aura is active, he will counter with Counter Furiga, which will grant you an additional 5% HP damage bonus. 3. You will get 10% HP damage bonus on action when you use a fire ability to attack the enemy. If you are bringing non-fire elemental units to the party, you can consider using Lulu LDCA to True Fire Enchant to overwrite the element, or bring Neon with her BT aura active. Generally, Rubicante is a solo specialist and slave carry master. He is more suitable for off-turn team comps, so you can abuse his powerful counters, which has a total of 6 AoE HP attacks when his buffs and BT aura are active. However, Rubicante party damage mitigation aura is only at 40%, upgradable to 80% with his A. A lot of the carry missions usually have Rubicante supplemented with the bronze unit and pair with defensive call with Gladio LDCA, Core LDCA, or Echo LDCA. He can burst heal with his S2 if needed. Do not expect his BT phase to do a lot of damage, but it is mostly used to speed up the force gauge charging. After using his LD, you going into his BT phase and use S2, LD, S2, S2, and the remaining skills is up to you to decide. Then, you can activate his FR once the force gauge is maxed. To make Rubicante the overpowered lock tank he can be, you need max investment on his gear, which includes green BT, blue HG armor and max force enhancements. As he is so overpowered, you will also probably think, if I miss him, am I going to be screwed? The answer is no. There is no unit in the game that is unskippable. There will always be alternative options available. You can see there are JP players still playing even they did not pull for Rubicante. If you abuse Rubicante for a long time, you might end up finding the game to be boring and repetitive. However, if you are struggling to clear Shinryu or have limited roster and resources, he is a very good investment option to help you to clear the content. In my opinion, it is up to the player's own preference whether they will want to win it ugly or do it with style. With this, I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight in the coming days. Bye.